Hey, Mike. So I heard a pretty funny joke this morning.
Mm.
This is somebody else's line, but it's pretty good. Did you hear Cisco offered $20 billion to Splunk?
Yeah, I did hear that.
Yeah, yeah. It's unclear whether they were trying to buy Splunk or just renew their contract.
The Splunk, the gift that keeps on draining.
Okay,
Okay.
that's not what we're here for, is it? Oh, maybe it is. I don't know. We have a lot to get through today.
Yeah, we
We
missed last week.
we missed last week. There was so much going on. We released our twice yearly healthcare breach report. We did a panel to talk about the results. We also did a panel about everybody's favorite topic, cyber insurance, with our friends at G2.
Hmm.
So busy day last week, and Mike ran out of gas.
Jake ran out of gas.
No,
And on
Mike
that
ran out of
topic,
gas.
because this is ostensibly about the weekend news, we got a nice mention in the Healthcare IT Security Journal about
Sure did.
navigating, what did they say, the saturated healthcare cybersecurity market.
Mm-hmm.
We're the first firm chosen by the American Hospital Association as a provider of managed detection and response service.
Mm-hmm.
So that was nice. Also, did a really nice podcast with Marianne McGee from ISMG.
Mm-hmm.
The beating that the health sector has taken is the subject of a lot of interest right now.
It sure is. Uh, and I'll get back to the second. I also want to say I went to one thing we didn't talk about because, well, we didn't do this last week. Was I went to the American Hospital Association conference in
Hmm.
Phoenix. Um, Now, usually, we just talk about bad news. I'm going to give you a piece of good news. One of the piece of good news, Mike,
Hmm.
was we gave a cybersecurity talk along with friends at Sky Lakes and Dickinson Medical Center, and of course
Hmm.
John Ridgey from the American Hospital Association. And man, the number of board members in the room, it was like 70% of the people in the room.
Really?
And it is heartening to see the board members really get excited. It is heartening. It is terrific. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it because
Usually they're not savvy about this particular
and they're
topic.
trying to get savvy, right? these are
Interesting.
not these are not folks who are savvy. They don't have IT backgrounds, they don't have medical backgrounds. Boards of hospitals can be farmers. There was one
Hmm.
guy I talked to who owned a grain collective, but like they're totally into learning about it. It was really great.
Good sign.
All right, well, let's get on with what's now 2 weeks of news we need to talk about, and I want to get to that lawsuit won by Merck about the NotPetya
Oh yeah.
attack,
Hmm.
and whether it was an act of war. The insurance company wasn't going to cover it, and then Merck took him to court, and this is good.
It is. So the cyber war exception was struck down. In this
Hmm.
particular case, there is some nuance here. Merck was trying to use uncertainty in attribution to say that you can't prove this was an act of war. In fact, you
Hmm.
can't prove that this was really Russia, right? And we know attribution is never exact, but the court found that the argument is moot anyway,
Hmm.
because Russia is not at war with the US and did not necessarily intend to attack a US firm with ransomware. And by the way, that was $1.4 billion that they were trying to have covered out of a $1.75 billion policy. And so, the insurance company lost this one, and now, chess pieces are getting moved around.
Yeah, I mean it's 1/20th of a Splunk renewal.
Yeah,
Just
that's
kidding.
right.
So I mean, insurance companies now tightening up the language of their contracts to make sure it doesn't happen to them,
Hmm.
of course. But it sounds like courts might continue to strike that down, which seems good. Um, more language to review at policy time for folks, right?
Yeah, they're probably going to broaden, the insurance companies are busy broadening the cyber war exclusions. I also read this week that some insurance companies are starting to turn back to profitability on cyber insurance. So those exclusions seem to be working.
I think that was a slight.
It was. Moving on. Um, DHS now has a cyber safety review board. So just like when an airplane crashes and the
Hmm.
NTSB comes, to figure out what went wrong, the Cyber Safety Review Board will do the same thing for federal agencies that get cybered. And I believe this is also going to apply to critical infrastructure operators. So, in my opinion, it's not going to scale well because there's a lot more cybering than airplane crashing going on.
Thank goodness, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
um, yeah. Hey, and DHS is on a hiring binge. I
Hmm.
mean, is that why?
Well, that's probably part of their hiring binge, but still, I mean, there's a finite number of resources, and only a subset of that set of resources will work for the federal government, despite the fact that they're paying real salaries now.
Yeah, I mean, we had some pretty interesting breaches over the last 2 weeks. News Corp was hacked,
Oh yeah.
and it seems like it was Chinese actors, right?
Hmm.
And we think it was for access to reporting. Apparently, it said scores of reporters affected. One thing to note about that is I actually didn't look that closely to see how many reporters were affected, but if you're one of those folks out there who either cheers or doesn't cheer for Fox News, if you're on a side, you have to remember that News Corp isn't just Fox News. News Corp is
It's the Wall Street Journal.
well, and local Fox stations, the local
Hmm.
Fox station in Seattle and San Francisco, basically in every NFC market. um, and that's not a mistake. But
Hmm.
anyway, I mean, so that's an important one to pay attention to.
Yeah, well, the FBI is also reiterating, because they've said it before, that China is by far the most active country in stealing secrets.
Hmm.
In fact, I think their exact wording was that uh, more cyber attacks come from China than every other country combined.
Really?
Yeah. So for all the talking we do about Russia, I think we need to keep that in context. But yes, interesting hacks. The News Corp was one of them. Two of them involved the Canadian trucker convoy.
Hmm.
Someone was able to compromise their funding site, GiveSendGo, and disclose the names of everyone that donated to them. So
Hmm.
embarrassing more than anything. But their communication network was also compromised. They were using Zello for chat. Someone was able to join the network, convince the truckers to make him an administrator, got them to fight among themselves, and then locked them all out. Wow.
I mean, that's more the cyber activism you've been talking about. I mean, there
Hmm.
was an article, what, like a week ago, 10 days ago, about how state-sponsored cutouts are being used for the same thing. Looks like activism, documents get leaked, but it's all supported by nation states.
Hmm. As if things need to get weirder. Yes, that is true. That was a really interesting article. That was more of an academic piece, by the way. Activism presents cover for state-sponsored actors to influence sentiment and outcomes, and there's a lot of it.
But that's been happening forever, but now we're really seeing it in the cyber world.
Yeah, but social media, throws
Yeah,
kerosene on this thing, right? Lots of it
sure,
looks like
sure.
secrets that are being disclosed into social media, and the real intent is disinformation and to, continue fomenting this division, right? You give people these wacky things to start passing around, and all of a sudden the sides, separate, and it's looks like it was a person, but it was a country.
Did you see the Super Bowl commercial? I forget whose it was. It was about nuts and whether you eat one nut or a handful of mixed nuts. And then
No.
the last line of it was, after America in the commercial, America's fighting over like, mixed nuts or one nut. And then the last line of the commercial is, who would have thought America would fight over such a trivial thing or whatever the line was. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, sounds like it's familiar to us, right?
Very. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, before we get into threats and vulnerabilities, I want to catch up on a couple of privacy issues. Privacy surveillance. There's another Israeli company selling spyware just like NSO's Pegasus.
Oh, good. That makes me feel good.
Yeah, how did we not know this, right? Same thing, zero-click malware that takes over phones. The company's called Quadream, and we're likely going to hear more about this.
Hmm.
Um, EU, this is interesting. EU citizens may get the right to challenge US access to their data through Privacy Shield. And if that is adopted, here is the fact: EU citizens will have more privacy rights in the US than Americans do. No kidding. Okay.
Great.
Um, the IRS abandoned its initiative to use facial recognition as an authentication process after everyone howled about it. Okay, so that's not surprising. Um, Supporters of encryption are getting geared up for another fight with Congress. about backdoors and law
Mhm.
enforcement and,
Mhm.
end-to-end encryption and how that's bad for law enforcement. The bill is called Earn It.
Mhm.
And I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more about it. That's going to turn into a fist fight pretty soon too.
Well, great. Threats and vulns. You said you were going to get to it.
Yeah,
Now is the time.
now is the time. Okay. So patch Chrome now. Patch Chrome now. It is under active attack. The Emotet Trojan is back and being distributed through malicious Excel files.
Mhm. Great.
VMware has released patches for multiple products, and this one sounds pretty severe as well. Leads to complete system takeover.
Makes me
Uh,
feel good. Thank you.
uh-huh.
Mhm.
Microsoft Exchange vulnerabilities that people have not patched are being chained to take over servers. So if you want to read up about this one, use your favorite search engine and look for Squirrel Waffle. And I'm not making that up.
Squirrel waffle? Is that like
Squirrel
water?
Waffle.
Is that like squirrel, like the water skiing thing?
I don't know how they come up with these names. I think there's this random word generator.
Okay, good. Anything else?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's massive LinkedIn phishing going on right now, posing as job offers for well-known companies, right?
Mhm.
Saying, "Hey, we think you're qualified to work for, Clorox or whoever." And executives in particular being targeted with Office 365 phishing. And that one's expanding right now. In fact, I saw a sample of that yesterday came to me from a compromised account. And, you know, I ran the attachment through Virus Total and found out, yeah, this is the bad thing. So,
Hey, and that reminds me, because this just came up in a conversation yesterday, with one of our friends, Mike, and they were like, "Oh, hey, do you all do O365 monitoring?" I was like, "Yeah."
yeah,
She's like, "You should make a bigger deal out of that. Like, we can monitor your stuff happening in O365." She's like,
hmm
"All I hear you talk about is like Azure, AWS, on-prem, but you can do she was like, "That's like MDR Lite."
yeah. Well, that's
Okay,
a lot of our
whatever.
customers
Yeah.
were monitoring O365. It's really high fidelity monitoring too.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Okay. Yeah, well, this one just in, Microsoft Teams is now being used to plant malicious files in chat threads,
Mhm.
which seems pretty easy to avoid to me. Just don't let some hacker into your chat, right? Why are you inviting someone into a meeting who has the ability to drop something like that in there?
Yeah.
So, all right, for whatever that's worth. I mean, that looks like it's not a vulnerability; it's just a tactic, and
Mhm.
I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't think that one's that bad.
All right. The timer says we've been yapping for almost 15 minutes here. You got a kicker? That's the
No,
thing
I'm
where you can
providing
make.
it for your yapping, and I'm providing useful information here.
Oh, it's not yapping. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification there.
hmm
That's very useful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This is the point where you make everybody smile with something in the end. What do you got?
Well, the one I have is one that I know makes me feel good. The Missouri governor has now been schooled by the court that no, pressing F12 to see page source is not a cyber attack. And their screwed up web app that gave away all the teachers' social security numbers was your own damn fault. So that's it. Missouri, please vote better.
Vote for an IT person for governor,
Exactly.
or somebody who knows
Or a
what F12 is.
scientist, who knows?
F12, F12. Uh, hey, so here's the thing: we were trying to figure out like how many people, like who's watching these and all this. And so
Because
I
you're the
have a
marketing guy. You want to
because
do
I'm
the
the
creepy
marketing guy.
tracking with everybody.
I don't want to do creepy tracking, but I do have an offer for folks. I'm going to the office later today because Mike is making me send one of our sweatshirts to one of our investors. So I'm going to go do that. While I'm there, we have a lot of these mugs.
Hmm.
Email me and I will send you a mug. The first
Oh,
person
cool.
who emails me, I will send you a mug. Jake at criticalinsight.com. I'll send you a mug because I'm going to be at the shipping place anyway. And I go to this nice neighborhood shipping place, and they've had a rough go of it through the pandemic. So giving them a little more business, good thing.
Good.
It's actually a guy from Afghanistan who's
Well,
been here for a long time, and I've used him for shipping for 13 or 14 years. His name is Bali. He's great. Great dude. All right, everybody. Well, have a good one. And don't forget to email me if you want a mug. First person who emails me, get a mug. Maybe second person too, but definitely first person. All right. Goodbye,
all right.
everybody.
Bye.